This video be sponsored by Squarespace. Much like the Earth, your website's looking a bit flat. Discover a new world of possibilities at the end.
In a world where pirates rule the waves, these men will discover that nothing is sacred and everyone is committed to rum, plunder, and women.
Hola, ladies.
This summer, Abstergo Entertainment invites you aboard for the adventure of a lifetime. So sharpen your cutlasses, shine your hooks, and sail with the devils of the Caribbean. This virtual experience is not being rated.
Oh, thank God. It was all a dream. Perhaps you're wondering why on earth I've elected to talk about the 6th installment of a franchise out of the blue. There's a simple answer to that. I rewatched Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's not such a random occurrence. Black Flag sticks out even among those who aren't fans of Assassin's Creed. It's the good one, the one that really is worth playing. Are they right? Well, let's find out. Black Flag's reputation has been somewhat sullied by the series it finds itself in. Some hardcore fans lamented that it was a poor Assassin's Creed game, and there's a lot of people out there who have nothing but disdain for this franchise. A sentiment I do not share, but nonetheless understand. There are some aspects of Assassin's Creed's gameplay that grate people. They don't like tailing missions, they don't like following NPCs for what feels like forever, they don't like a shallow combat system. They get bored before they get to gnaw into what is usually this franchise's strength. The stories. Well, Black Flag has a very long tutorial, and yeah, that involves a lot of following, but it's not often you come across a game with this many facets. All things considered, I don't think it's at all slow in its teachings. Within an hour, you've learned how to use a ship, you've fought, done stealth, tailed, parkour, blending, used courtesans, learned every assassination technique stolen from Templars and bonded with Edward. It's a thrilling and surprisingly unique thing to play as a believable human being in a video game. Edward's a homesick pirate, only out for himself. He's got a lovable personality, but just as it was with Captain Jack Sparrow, a man with flaws is the most compelling of them all. Because we have flaws. We're tempted towards some of them. Everyone has a compulsion for greed. Jack Sparrow took that and expressed it in the smartest way a writer could. In his book, Writing the Breakout Novel, Donald Mast refers to larger-than-life characters as a key to doing just that. People who do what we want to do, say what we want to say, but never would. Those are the most compelling. Oh, Edward is more down to earth, certainly, but the concept works the same. Although, we shouldn't let that distract us from what's really important. The modern day plot. After Desmond got his balls fried into a light vapor, the next step for the modern day is an immersive sim, apparently. You're working for Abstergo. It's first person and you can read people's emails, so just think Human Revolution, but with no revolution and an arseload of French people. Ubisoft does a decent job of introducing everything they need to in a very short time span, but that doesn't change how inappropriate a pace break in an already slow-paced section felt.
Bonjour. Of course. I'll pass it on. Well, looks like Olivier wants to meet with you. It's exciting.
Is it?
Follow me.
Really? Olivier? What's Olivier gonna show me? How to pirate hentai? This is not what I signed up for. They then have the actual audacity to shove this in your face. You're doing that off a modern day section? Oh my word. You might have often heard, a great pirate game, a weak Assassin's Creed, or some variation thereof. Some may even go as far as to say Black Flag should not have been an Assassin's Creed at all. Well, I disagree with that. The overwhelming majority of Assassin's Creed conventions service a pirate game perfectly. Flashy, over-the-top combat, check. Bouncing around the place like a kangaroo prostitute, excellent. Stealth? Kinda. But a philosophical battle between order and chaos, control and freedom, isn't that just what being a pirate is about? Assassin's Creed is perfect for a pirate game. And Ubisoft weren't a bad choice to make it. They've always been excellent at designing a world and bringing it to life. This rendition of the Caribbean is utterly immaculate. The art is an immense factor in the game's charm. The locations are all tantalizing despite being graphically dated, thanks to frequent uses of verticality, dense foliage, waterfalls, rainbows, clean light blue water, and a beaming sun. It sticks to a consistent yellow, blue, and green color palette, but still manages to portray the feeling of a tropical pirate adventure when it doesn't. Storms are stricken with lightning, and the art extends into gameplay with rogue waves and water spouts, all stylized and amazing to behold. Unsurprisingly, these graphics did not age well. They were built to run on hardware so old it used to get wedgies from Rosa Parks, but the visuals will nonetheless stand the test of time. And the Caribbean isn't just surface deep. You can sail into colossal naval battles between the Spanish and the British. You can take sides, and have yourself a Barney even at World's End would be jealous of. You can find Mayan temples, discover secrets and solve ancient puzzles, which is aligning a pattern with some rocks, but it still counts. You can explore each of these tropical islands to your heart's content. That's the Caribbean fantasy, an R-rated Wind Waker. But the pirate side of the coin is done just as well. If you can think of it, you've got it. Apart from struggle snuggles and hanging people, of course. Exploring, hunting, looting treasure, capturing forts, boarding ships, robbing ships, selling their cargo off at a profit, recruiting new crew, building a fleet, building a secret cove, sending your fleet off on missions, being chased by bounty hunters, capturing forts, upgrading your ship, making it look sweet, making yourself look sweet, singing, fighting mythical battles, getting drunk, playing board games, harpooning whales, which Peter didn't like. I am gonna run out of breath, but there's probably something I'm forgetting. If you can think of it, and it wouldn't get the game banned, it's here. Black Flag's got gameplay ranging from strong to decent, and an excellent story. If all that sold you on the game, then play it now. This is the best pirate game ever made. That was your spoiler warning. But pirates beware. Ubisoft, as we well know, carry their disadvantages, and gameplay is on the chopping block. See, I know where the rum's gone. The guys in charge of bug fixing have bukkakied the entire keg down their throats. Look at this shit. Rabbids weren't even involved in the Caribbean conflict. It is my actual, bona fide, real human being opinion that Assassin's Creed Black Flag is comparably bugged to Unity. Not on launch, I'm talking about post-patch, right now. Here's the thing. I don't care if an animation is screwed up or someone's face is pissed off. That's funny. I care when I lose a man of war boarding because Edward clipped through what I'm trying to land on. I care when Edward sheathes his swords in the middle of a battle. I care when it's ball-stomping the drama out of the most action-packed scenes because I can't get over a fucking tree stump.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
Black Flag is amazing, but it is not finished. I understand that a delay was next to impossible because 2014 already had Unity and Rogue lined up. But I sure as shit don't understand how they had time for multiplayer and DLC when the Foundation's got 47 chromosomes. Keep in mind, Freedom Cry is plagued with similar issues. On PC, the DLC edition still has broken sound effects. It's worth addressing now that many people won't even remember any technical issues. And you know what? I'm one of them. I didn't remember them either. They're not like Unity's moments of utter slapstick comedy. It's small issues, consistently, so they don't tend to be as memorable, but nonetheless accumulate to a significantly negative effect. I guarantee that everyone did see something like this, something like this, and something like this. Their computer code must look like a ransom note for the game to be this clunky. It distinctly affects every aspect of the experience, whether it's noticed or not. But let me tell you, the reward's worth it. Time to dig into the gameplay. Black Flag's flagship feature is a flagship feature in more ways than one, but it was pioneered in Assassin's Creed 3. The Jackdaw's got 3 settings in a fight: stationary, mid-sail, and full sail. You trade speed for maneuverability, a decision you'll consistently have to make. Therein lies the depth, you see. A ship's most dangerous weapons are its broadside cannons, so you're looking to have yours pointed at them and theirs pointed anywhere that isn't you. You'll seek to stay with the front or the back of the enemy, you'll speed up or slow down to avoid a broadside strike, but you may even rotate lengthways simply to reduce the proportion of their balls that make contact. Then factor in being able to avoid recharge times by swapping sides. Useful for group fights, the heavy shot that trades close range for better damage, the front-mounted chain shot that vitally slows an enemy's speed and rotation, and the ram, also giving you a reason to mix up your tactics. There's a lot of options, each with a risk-reward, like trying to get eaten out by Davy Jones. This combat's shaping up. Mortars and the swivel guns aren't related to sides of the ship, nor do they come with drawbacks, so they don't contribute interesting decisions to the system. system in the same way, but they're not without purpose. Swivels simply provide something satisfying to do to break up broadside volleys, and mortars add a small layer of depth through aiming. There's a delayed impact, so you want to fire just ahead of where the enemy's moving. This combat isn't as deep as the ocean it's set on, but it's close. It'd be a lot closer if the heavy shot didn't exist though. To put it simply, the recharge rate of the heavy shot is far too quick. It reloads so often that if you can kill the enemy faster than it can kill you, there's no reason to not default to the following strategy. Mortar from afar, chain shot when in range, and then heavy shot repeatedly until boardable for the health recharge. It's objectively safer and quicker to pull off than using standard tactics with broadsides, which is a big deal because it takes so much less thought. Broadsides let you hold the shot for better accuracy, you can arc them, and you can actually use movement to defend yourself because they aren't so restricted by range. Heavy shot needs you in the same place. Just park your ass next to the enemy and go sicko mode on the trigger. There's less depth to the best strategy. That's a serious flaw. I highly recommend avoiding upgrades for the heavy shot. If the reload rate wasn't so generous, you wouldn't have superior DPS to broadsides, but even a much tighter ammo limit would have done the job here. If you could only have 2 or 3 at a time, they'd just be a cool thing to do when in range. A real shame, but mercifully, it has no effect on the most important part of naval combat. That doesn't sound right, does it? But it's true. All who wish to storm their decks and take their ships stomp and shout aye. All who oppose whimper nay. You get 4 ropes to swing from. Top ones have the best range, bottom ones are quicker, but at the end of the day, it's all about style. You may want to open up with pepperings of swivel fire, but you're going to need to dive in to complete the objectives. On frigates and men of war, you might need to kill the captain, the officers, the scouts, blow up the powder kegs, or climb to the top of the mast and cut down their flag.
That's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen.
So it would seem.
Varied boarding objectives stick a roadblock in front of stagnation, and Brian Tyler's incredible music makes this a supremely exhilarating experience every time. It is unmissable, and believe it or not, it's not the only way you can take a ship. I discovered this on my latest run. If you find a ship with its sails down, one that's part of a blockade for example, you can park up nearby and swim right over. If you take out the crew personally, a single hit from the jackdaw is checkmate, and you'll win the boarding as soon as you begin it. Unless it's a man of war, of course, in which case you'll have to do something stupid like shoot 3 barrels, but you still avoid all conflict. The option alone to take a ship personally, or if you're a masochist, stealthily, is fantastic. Though I certainly wish there was a way to summon the jackdaw so you didn't have to spend so long swimming. A deployable rowboat on every ship would have been perfect. My only other gripe with the naval combat is something similar. There's an issue with how you choose what to do with a ship once you've got it. Picking between health, notoriety, or the fleet is a great idea, but that's not what I'm talking about. You make this choice in a completely separate set of cutscenes, and these cutscenes do not adapt to your situation. If, for instance, I'm in the naval equivalent of World War III, what I want to do is get back to the jackdaw as soon as possible. What neither I or Edward would want to do is sit everyone down and smugly organize transfers as someone in the background's getting their insides mangled up like Shrek sat on a lasagna. It's a real immersion breaker, and a demonstrably unnecessary one because you can avoid it if you stealth board. Small issues though, in the wake of what this system provides. Black Flag's piracy is so well built that it supports the entire game, the end game, and countless hours of prancing about with the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack thereafter. You could very well say that the best part of this game is the one least like Assassin's Creed, most of which were entirely set in cities. Well, let's have a closer look. It's time to make port anyway. But where? There is a wide selection. You can settle for a beautiful Caribbean island to drink on and plunder. There's a good chance of finding some buried treasure, animals to hunt, and it's completely seamless, no loading whatsoever from jackdaw to land. Can't say the same for cities. Havana, Kingston, and Nassau, that's certainly a higher count than previous games, but only Havana matches previous efforts in scale, and, sadly, quality. Havana's got beauty, landmarks, a great range of buildings to parkour across. What's Kingston got? Some fields. It's forgettable. It's got no personality. Nassau does. Oh, it may be tiny, but as the pirates' independent city, it's bleeding with life. Sometimes literally bleeding. They've got no medicine. And, quite a bit of syphilis. The fort and pub are memorable landmarks, it's a gorgeous place to behold. But also more so than Kingston, it serves parkour excellently. There's the way to get there on the ground, and there's the way to get there like an assassin. If you can get where you're going directly, with more parkour than streets, it's a good bet the city's well designed. There's got to be trees, bars, ledges, ropes, buildings close to each other to facilitate a consistent use of parkour, but sometimes you got to have open space for the sake of believability. Think of it like this: parkour is about getting from A to B in a complex environment in the fastest and most efficient way possible. So if you can get where you're going with maybe 50% parkour, significantly quicker than you could using only the ground, something's been done right. I can speak for Havana and Nassau that this is true. But unlike all previous Assassin's Creeds, Black Flag does something more. It's tried its very own version of Crackdown's orbs. Plentiful, damn near addicting tokens that you'll find just about anywhere. They're called Animus Fragments, the idea being that you intentionally make your route a little harder to collect these blips on the way, thereby extracting a little more mechanical fun from moment-to-moment gameplay. The sea shanties, or reskinned manuscripts from Assassin's Creed 3, work the same way, just with a little chase beforehand. The disadvantage of fragments is that the completionists among us go looking for them, specifically for them, which results in very low-level gameplay. It doesn't complement a route you were already going down, it simply becomes the route, and that incites far less thought. Sea shanties pass the mark. You can even try to predict which way they'll go when you get close enough, but I would have preferred Animus Fragments weren't counted at all towards an island's completion. They simply don't have enough of a material benefit, and it is worth avoiding Dragon Age Inquisition syndrome. It's an acute condition. Patients present with a manic compulsion to chase completion at the cost of their own enjoyment. The uncorking animation on notes in a bottle is way too long, and more often than not resulted in my complete avoidance. But with fragments, sea shanties, chests, Mayan stelae, and treasure maps, I found myself consistently engaged during exploration, either through the mechanical fun of parkour or the satisfaction of appropriating hidden booty. A huge markup for Black Flag. Scrambling about the place like a rocket-propelled hamster is good fun, but let me tell you something, mastering it isn't. It's next to impossible. Yeah, it's the bugs again. I don't think I've ever touched an Assassin's Creed with parkour this inconsistent. You can't know which bits of the environment induce a minor seizure and which Edward will glide over like water. But a seizure is the least of your worries. What about when he outright refuses to climb things for no apparent reason? Resisting this inconsistency more often than not has you swan diving into who knows where. Death unless you get lucky if it's from the masts of a man of war, and a guaranteed detection in a stealth encounter. None of this is to say that your skill can't grow at all though. It's simply a matter of understanding the bullshit. The jump button, for example, can be used to noticeably improve your play, so long as you use it in the right places. To skip a corner, to start off a climb with a greater height than usual. If there's anything else you can think of, it'll probably fail, for no other reason than inconsistent design. Most poles are to be avoided. Sure, with time, my skill improved, but only because I learned which objects the jump tends to work on and which it doesn't. It's better than no skill ceiling at all, but not by much. With the wind thoroughly out of our sails, let's catch up with the story so far. Commandeering the Jackdaw was an unforgettable moment.
All hands aft, lads. We're taking this one home.
Well, why the hell didn't you put the intro there then? But following that, you're subjected to numerous tutorial missions for about 4 or so hours. What needed to happen now is action, 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 not noncing around with James Kidd for 2 hours as the game tries to shoehorn the assassins into the story. The game's pace takes a serious hit. After having kicked a notorious Templar's head in, James leads Edward to the assassin's stronghold. You screw around in stealth until you make it to the assassin leader, a man so forgettable I can't remember his name. His one character trait is stoic. But he allows Edward and James to venture into the Mayan temple, where you solve the stupidest puzzle in history and rush out to find a Templar attack. On the bright side, it's Edward's fault. His bull-headed recklessness kicked the hornet's nest, and now the assassins are paying for it. Even after freeing as many as possible, he can't redeem himself. An important and very engaging part of his development. But that can't save this act from its pace, nor can Edward's motivation at the time. We're pining for a sage, otherwise known as Bartholomew Roberts. Edward knows nothing about him, nor do we. With nothing to latch onto, and the highest stakes being an observatory MacGuffin we also don't know anything about, this part of the story is dull at best. But Bartholomew Roberts is a mysterious man. He blossoms into one of the most charismatic characters this franchise has ever seen, which is in a way a personification for the story as a whole. Once the motivations and complexities of the characters are on the table, once the plates are spinning, everything comes together, as if by magic. Blackbeard isn't going to be a captain for much longer. He wants to play the devil now against the others' wishes, but he'll still respect their tactics if they get the job done. Nobody wants to go against that, but he is pushing the British further and further every day. Hornigold, meanwhile, views Nassau as a totally lost cause. The king's offering a pardon. Hornigold wants to take it, give himself and the other pirates a chance at a life that doesn't end in the gallows. This splits the pirate brethren, but Edward is still the idealist, trying to find a way to maintain their way of life without pissing off the Empire. That doesn't always work out. This game doesn't pull punches. There are so many conflicts all happening at once. Everyone wants so many things. A lot of writers would have taken the easy way out. They'd have all these issues resolve themselves through the heroics of the main character. Not here. Consistent characters are common to all the best stories ever told. These pirates are not so romanticized that they're like the in-betweeners of the Caribbean. Some of them are senseless, violent thugs, and most of them are your friends. Charles Vane doesn't have a sensible thought in his head, which puts the pair of you on a desert island. Keira Knightley isn't there to save you. You don't make up, because he loses his mind, leading to a depressing fight to the death. Assassin's Creed has always portrayed its characters brilliantly. Black Flag is the best it's ever been. Not only are the pirates decently loyal to their real-life counterparts, but they might as well not be dead for all the work Ubisoft's done. The voice acting is second to none, and I don't say that lightly. Even the greatest RPGs are put to shame by huge names like Ralph Ineson as Charles Vane, Matt Ryan as Edward, and Mark Bernard as Blackbeard. I'd bet good money that their lines were recorded at the same time as well. One sentence bounces off another like it were a real conversation, and the voice is just a single part of it. The facial models are incredibly expressive despite running on ancient tech, and the motion capture is just as good. These characters move as people do, when they're angry, drunk, or whatever the time may call for. Angry and drunk are the only ones that matter anyway. From a presentation standpoint, they're unquestionably perfect. It brings the story to life so well that every word written lands with 10 times the impact. And with a higher attachment to the characters, the plot strengthens like red-hot steel. Stakes fly through the roof when they're put in danger, and conflicts are found everywhere. Ideology, dominance, empires, hearts. My patience. Oh, that was a sudden transition. Kinda took you out of the moment, huh? Appropriate. Bugs undermining drama is frequent and infuriating. You know what else is frequent and infuriating? Tailing missions. I wouldn't say this undermines the drama, but it does perhaps weaken the story. There's a reason it's the community's biggest complaint. It's one of the many downfalls of the early game, but it doesn't ease with time. You see, normal stealth allows complete freedom. There's a vast range of possibilities because you can approach from any route. You could become distracted by something irrelevant. That means variation, but the additional benefit is navigation becoming a huge aspect of gameplay. The route is another thing to consider. It's very important too. Tailing, meanwhile, forces you down a scripted pathway with frequent preordained obstacles. You might blend, or use the roofs, or hide in a fucking cardboard box, any way you have it. Navigation has made like the rum, and gone. You also completely lose the option to enter open combat. Killing anyone at all can be too great a risk. Is this worth the advantage? You get a greater degree of challenge overall, and I do enjoy the tension of needling my way through sightlines on the clock, but that's not enough to make up for this mission type's flaws over the course of an entire game, and certainly not when you account for the fact that tailing in a ship is even more restrictive. It's certainly a problem, but not this game's biggest one. Not in my opinion. It's combat I've got a bone to pick with. Well, actually, I don't, because there's only 3 weapon types. Combat is without question the weakest part of Black Flag. I even felt that way back in 2014 when I loved this franchise like a religion. You might have me surrounded and hopelessly outnumbered, lads, but there's one very important thing you seem to be forgetting. I'm Captain Edward Kenway. Savvy? So, I'm just gonna exploit my extremely generous counter window to kill chain over and over and over and over. Everything that gave Assassin's Creed 3 any crumb of challenge is gone. Enemy population is way the hell down. It's like the Birds of Prey showings out here. But that's just a start. Half of 3's troopers carried muskets, so they could form firing lines dynamically in combat. We've also lost horses that could kick your ass if you didn't pay attention, and you can now fit the entire Assassin's Creed movie in the counter window, with easily enough time left over to watch a movie that doesn't suck. All we're left with now is the parts of 3 that were easy. Enemies who are immune to a kill chain sure as hell aren't immune to break defense, which results in an instant kill window if you're using the swords. You should be. They're objectively the best option. I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Carr's accountant was responsible for this balancing. You're allowed to instantly kill them. What in the name of peg-leg hornswaggle is the point of doing anything but that? Certainly nothing extrinsic. No reason to break defense out of a counter, you only do that before they've attacked. No point in counter-throwing, because even if you do hit someone, it would have taken less time and less inputs to just kill everyone normally. There's obviously no point in using an item, it's a complete waste of resources, which leaves us with disarm. Useful when you've got no weapons, so that's about twice. It's kind of funny. Even if Black Flag's combat reliably worked, and it doesn't, it still wouldn't be good. Let's have a look at the aforementioned not working. This game's unreliability puts a boot up any dream of high-level play. Have fun teleporting. Enjoy counter-inputs being ignored and your crew hitting you in group fights. Edward frequently sheathes his swords in spitting distance of enemies for no reason at all, and he doesn't immediately attack when you run into someone, which has you doing circles around them like Barry Allen trying to solve this week's predicament. Good luck maintaining stealth when Edward randomly does an open combat takedown on an unaware enemy, resulting in instant detection. It's not as if this only works against you either. Enemies kill themselves. Enemies instantly die in a kill chain even if you barely graze them, resulting in death by poltergeist. I almost enjoy the chaos, but boy, it can get frustrating. Black Flag trades off depth and challenge for the sake of high-paced, highly accessible combat with consistently flashy animations. Is it worth it? Maybe. It is a pirate game. I can't imagine Assassin's Creed 2 or Unity system when you're boarding a man of war. It's too slow, too small scale. But the real answer is no. It isn't worth it. I don't think sacrifices were necessary. Feeling like a badass and being challenged are not mutually exclusive. Look at Shadow of War. You're the Lord of the Rings, cutting through armies like butter. But to compensate, the game busts out these insane enemies. Captains, war chiefs, Nazgul, fucking dragons. Things balance out. You're an all-powerful badass, so are your enemies. No sacrifices. So where's the tough enemies in Black Flag? Why can't additional ships show up during a boarding to help out your enemies? Assassin's Creed 3 was no less flashy, but I remember frequently running away from the guards. I remember viewing them as a threat. It's not just depth we've lost, it's a core element of the franchise too, running away. You don't play defense in this game. You aren't scared of being overwhelmed. A notoriety system similar to that of Assassin's Creed 3 could have done most of the legwork here, but even that is gone. A consistent element of the franchise that delivered at the very least variation is trashed. And with it goes part of being a pirate too. Pirates ran away, they weren't immune to musket fire neither in real life nor in the fantasies. Wasn't Jack at his best when he was making his escape? But clearly, in spite of all of this, people are still finding some enjoyment from sections of the game that involve combat heavily. The boarding, for example, and plenty of the campaign. I sure did. So what's happening? What's happening is intrinsic motivation. Let me ask you this. Is it still depth if you're making interesting decisions for sakes besides simply winning? Fun is derived from creating a successful outcome in an uncertain system. So what if, to you, a successful outcome is winning in the coolest way possible? This combat system isn't unusable, it's just needlessly nowhere near as good as it could be. Intrinsic motivation is valid. Let's play along. If you quickly switch to fists in a fight, then disarm counter, you get the one-handed sword, which provides a lovely variety in animations. Edward's pistol multi-kills were a feature of the marketing, so they're here too, encouraging you to take out multiple small targets at the same time. The special attack on the axe is a ridiculously brutal way of opening a fight, and I only found this recently, but there's also a hidden mechanic that nets you these badass double kills. I assume they were in 3 too, but I only noticed the standard doubles. If you're in a kill chain, you can pull this off by using either the pistol or the rope dart while targeting 2 other close-by enemies. It's no easy task, which makes getting it right all the more rewarding. Oh, there's plenty of badassery to commit in Black Flag. Therein lies the source of our fun. But valid or not, it's still a regression. No small weapons means none of Among Connor's best animations. The frequency of double counter opportunities feels 1/10 of its previous rate. It's buggier, and you can't get around the fact that things are simply more satisfying when they're challenging. 3 has the edge in depth and flair. What 4 does well, it owes 3, and for what it does poorly, it can only blame itself. Coming into the late game, the spinning plates are starting to drop. Shatter by shatter, the game draws you in tighter and tighter, and for no brief moment, what I assumed would be a conclusive third of the game ended up being a conclusive half of the game. Black Flag is long enough in fact, to match up very nicely with the various progression systems of the game. So, time to ask the real question. Why is the rum gone? 1, because it is a vile drink that turns even the most respectable of men into complete scoundrels. 2, because we're selling it to the highest bidder. But why is the rum gone? Listen, mate, this game's got an excellently balanced economy. You're always in need of coin for something, upgrading the jackdaw, hiring meat, hiring pirate booty, or buying weapons and armor. It's never too easy to get. The most you'll consistently pocket is the profit from hauls of rum and sugar, but it's conversely never too hard. You can search for buried treasure, ambush convoys, plunder not buried treasure, rob people, accept contracts. It's just good business. The contracts were quite a surprise, interestingly. Naval and assassin contracts both are essentially a plentiful supply of enjoyable gameplay scenarios. Naval might have you break through a blockade, blow up a man of war, sink so many ships. Assassination, on the other hand, simply has you kill a single target in the midst of a group. It's basic, certainly, but it gets the job done. This doesn't apply to cities, but pay attention to the locations of your target. This is where Assassin's Creed gets to make use of its newfound size. They'll take you to places you didn't even know existed, and that is why I love them. I remember diving into a shipwreck, swimming past jellyfish and surfacing inside a hidden smuggler's den. I had to kill my target and fight my way out with no equipment to speak of, before finding myself overlooking the jackdaw for an easy escape. Sure as shit wouldn't have seen all that if the contract didn't take me through it. Naval's naturally not as creative with the locations, but you can nonetheless expect entertainment from high-end encounters. Hell yeah, I want the opportunity to sink an entire blockade with stealth boarding. It's a numerous supply of excuses to engage with Black Flag's gameplay at its best. There's not a single one I didn't enjoy. It's a considerably better game for having them. And I can say the same thing about the chase for elusive sets of legendary armor so frequently featured in Assassin's Creed. I've loved them all. They're a fantastic way of getting you into the side quests and chasing collectibles, thereby presenting a solid endgame goal. They came with a true feeling of mastery when you finally got your hands on them. Yet, even to this day, it's not been done better than it was in Assassin's Creed 2. You had these incredible tombs dedicated to each piece of the puzzle, and we've never seen anything like that since. Black Flag's taken the rudimentary approach. Do the bog-standard side quests for the Templar armor. Collect collectibles for the Mayan armor. Functional, but not as compelling. Thankfully, both of these sets live up to their rarity, in style and substance. Templar offers significantly increased defense, and Mayan allows you to deflect all bullets. Gunners are the most dangerous enemies in the game by a long shot, and because of their long shots too. So yeah, Mayan is kind of insanely overpowered, but I approve completely. The journey matches the destination. Killing Templars dressed as a Templar did make some scenes quite weird, but hey, I wanted to cosplay Shay, and as Death Stranding taught us, sometimes the cool outfits are worth being the bad guys. Huh. Bad guys. Are they? A defining feature of the Kenway era is a moral ambiguity. It was strong in 3, the defining feature of Rogue, and it's certainly present here too. The pirate and assassin philosophy align quite well, freedom at all costs, but so often has their brutish lifestyle hurt everyone around them. The Templars, on the other hand, want to build a better world from behind the scenes, control everyone and direct them onto the right path. But to do this requires the sacrifice of freedom, though interestingly that doesn't intersect with slavery. Grand Master Torres despises the practice and demands all Templars to step away from it. It certainly makes them look a lot better, huh? Smart. No one's going to consider what slavers have to say. Take that away, you might not be so reluctant to bend your ear. I questioned myself for killing Hornigold. Sure, he's a traitor. If Thatch could have seen him. But he makes a strong point. You made your society, and you pissed it away. Drinking, whoring, killing. The Templars offer something real, a chance at genuine peace, not a cesspit, whose lack of civility led only to disease and death. Some level of conflict within the player is a fantastic narrative driving force behind the entire Kenway saga, this game included. With Hornigold dead though, and Torres in arm's reach, the story shifts to focus on Edward. If there's one thing Ubisoft have a talent for, it's bugs. But if there's two things, it's bugs and endings. There's a remarkable sense of finality, of drama, of raw emotion to the ends of Assassin's Creed games, and this is no exception. Missions are grandiose and straight to the point, but never completely predictable. I didn't see Torres' body double coming, nor the special boss fight thereafter. Havana is locked down completely, and they effectively opt for the stormiest weather the engine could muster. Something similar is true for everything else too. There's no doubt the climax of the progression, and equally the most challenge the game has to offer, are Black Flag's legendary ships. You best start believing in ghost stories, Mr. Kenway. You're in one. 4 unique boss fights hiding in the mists, silently waiting for Edward to creep too close. Yes, they are just men of war, but impressively, each one has a unique quality. Ladama... I'm sorry, I'm not getting demonetized for that. La Dama Black in Spanish has a special mortar it can fire without warning. HMS Prince's heavy shot comes out in a single devastating blow. These quirks contribute to an intense challenge, even with the elite hull, and a genuine sense of legend. They're fantastic. And it kinda sucks that it ends there, honestly. This game delivers on the promise of nearly every pirate fantasy, with a major exception being there's no Kraken, no Leviathan. You don't have to worry about believability when you're so deep into the endgame. It got away with ghost ships, why not these? I understand it might have been slightly irritating to stow away all the anime women every time it showed up, but this game's proven itself with regards to naval combat. It's also a shame you never get to use the legendary ship's powers for yourself, but if you sink all 4 of them, you do get a special ram ability. It's an incredible leap in power, appropriate for the greatest trial of them all. The Mayan armor and these 4 ships. Once you've done those, you feel like you've not just beaten the Caribbean, but mastered it. Only thing left for Edward to prove is himself. It's been an incredible journey, so many people, so many memories, so much growth. In ways much like other games we're familiar with, Black Flag greatly benefits from its surprisingly lengthy runtime. The sense of team camaraderie believably and harshly fades over time, with every member, all of whom you had enough time to bond with, being picked off one by one from the various hardships of their criminal lifestyle. In Sequence 11, you share a moment with Anne Bonny, one of the only surviving pirates. Blackbeard, Charles, Jack, Benjamin, Mary, all dead, all gone. Similarly, character arcs are allowed to stretch over so much time and so many events that it feels far more believable than it would otherwise. Remember, Edward is a prideful, stubborn man. He's actually prideful of the fact that he's prideful and stubborn. He's not malleable. A man who was brought up in a selfish world, who only ever lived for himself, who's proud of the free society he created, is gonna take an immense amount of time to look at himself in the mirror. It helps that when he finally does, it's one of the most brilliantly performed moments in franchise history. It's a drink-induced dream sequence after yet another of his friends' deaths, and it felt remarkably true to the process of change, at least based on how I've experienced it myself. Memories of others, illusions of what they'd say now. I wish so badly that they'd shut up, but a part of me knows there's some truth behind them, and that's why they won't. Someone new stands up from that fight, whatever the conclusion. I loved that you only got to play as Assassin Edward for a couple sequences. A pirate assassin sounds like a 10-year-old's short story premise, and yet it's written so smartly that I begged for the story not to end so I could spend more time with him. It's a shame about how the assassins were integrated initially, but whoever would have thought that they could portray the pirate philosophy becoming the assassin philosophy as elegantly as they've always told the conflict between assassin and Templar. Oh, the villains in this game might not be the most memorable, but I couldn't agree less with the statement that this story is no good as an assassin's creed. Sadly, our time with Edward must come to an end. After finishing the Templars and protecting the First Civilization's observatory, Edward has time to reflect in the Pirate's Cove. He is now a true assassin and more driven than ever to right his wrongs. Pride turned to guilt, and that's what I would guess a lifetime of guilt does to you. A crushing impulse to make amends. Maybe not with those you've hurt, but the world. He'll head for London to help the assassins, but first, it's time to rebuild with the people who he owes it to most.
And if you learn to keep settled in one place for more than a week, you'll make a fine father too. Of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company. And all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of a wit to memory now I can't. So felt a parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all.
That, in context of the whole game, in my opinion, matches Revelations. One of the best endings the franchise has ever seen. How beautiful, a simple flower plucked from the ground only seconds before, that in giving to this little girl Edward has never met, represents his growth from the start of Black Flag to the very end. It's quite abrupt, but its simple beauty is evidence enough that the gold isn't to be found in some buried treasure, but in this game's heart. Isn't that the very message? In a world without gold, we might have been heroes. This is Edward's chance. And to much benefit, I think, you get to spend a little time with Jenny on the Jackdaw, while Edward does his best to be a decent father. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is the best pirate game ever made. It's also one of the best pirate stories ever penned. The way they managed to craft unique, lively, and interesting characters with complex ideas and believable growth, while adhering to actual history and upholding this game's individual theme, is worthy of endless praise. It innovated in ways no Assassin's Creed fan could have dreamt of, and though it was bogged down by bugs and tailing missions replete, it established the single best naval combat system gaming has ever seen, with one of the planet's most incredible settings lovingly realized as the backdrop. Smarter mission design, far improved combat, and a goddamn bug patch. With those, I wouldn't hesitate to call this brilliant game a masterpiece. It's not. But like all of the best entries in this franchise, its hidden weapon is its soul. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more on Assassin's Creed, let me know. And if you'd like to hear a fun fact, keep listening. Funnily, a lot of pirates used to believe that the Earth was flat. I know, it's hard to believe. They actually thought that the space they occupied was square. You know what? That reminds me of Squarespace. Have you ever wanted to make a website? Well, if you're a pirate, the answer is probably no. But that's actually one of the reasons pirates went extinct. Now, what does a pirate need? A pirate needs a fence, a means of selling his or her prize. You can do that with Squarespace's integrated commercial features. It's never been easier to sell your product. Pirates got their Skull and Crossbones merch from somewhere. How did they vote in their next captain? Boom, community features. Need a new crew? Scheduled posts, duh. Just set it up to put out an ad whenever you make port. It's never been simpler to achieve such functionality in web design, which is a big deal, because most pirates can't even read. Sail to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then you can use squarespace.com/whitelight to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. It's just good business. Thank you to Fabian Flack, Effectfully, Meme, Mardi, Mr. T with some tea, Gurniel Kang, Ballistic Rainbow, Sim, John Lemley, Bishop Nelson, Benjamin Carter, Dominic Jaworski, Lex Williams, L. Hudson, Joshua W. Schreiner, Hitcham Jabirown, Rob Massey, Sai, Sleepy Bear, Trixie Lullamoon, Captain Excellent, Shade, Chance Tucker, Drop ZZ, Combat Wombat, Juris Purins, Holy Shift, Noah B. Satterley, Leon Cuttendale, Abby, and Douglas Griffith.